The
We
company
recommend
doesn't
voting
remove
against
her
the proposed
loudly.
merger.
It removes
All
her
those in favor
efficiently.
of the recommendation,
While 7
please
people
raise your
sit
hands
around a
now.
polished table agreeing she has become a liability, her access is already disappearing. Her executive email shuts down first, then her calendar, then the internal permissions she once insisted on designing herself, back when the company was fragile and she didn't trust anyone else to protect it. By the time the vote is recorded, the system is already behaving as if she never existed. And the cruelest part is this: she is still driving to work. Isabella Knox keeps both hands steady on the steering wheel, eyes forward, posture relaxed. She is reviewing numbers in her head, not because she needs to, but because she likes control. The 9 o'clock meeting matters. The expansion vote matters. The future still feels intact. At 8:41 a.m., the board decides it no longer belongs to her. The discussion takes less than 2 minutes. No one questions her intelligence. No one questions her results. No one mentions that she built the company from a rented warehouse and a prototype everyone else dismissed. They talk about optics. They talk about risk concentration. They talk about stability. One man clears his throat and says, "She's become unpredictable." No one challenges that word. 7 hands rise. One pauses, then follows. Unanimous enough. If stories like this make your stomach tighten, that's not accidental. People stay to the end because they sense the danger underneath. And this is exactly where it begins. At 8:47 a.m., security receives instructions. They are told to be respectful, polite, calm, no confrontation, no raised voices. This is not a firing. It's a transition. Language makes cruelty easier to digest. Isabella arrives at the building 3 minutes later. The glass doors slide open. The lobby looks the same. The marble floors gleam. The receptionist looks up, freezes for a fraction of a second, then forces a smile too precise to be real. "Good morning," she says. Isabella nods and reaches for her badge. The reader flashes red. She tries again. Red. A flicker of irritation crosses her face, quickly controlled. She hasn't been denied access to anything in over 15 years. A guard steps forward immediately, voice soft, rehearsed. "There's been an authorization update, Ms. Knox. If you could wait just a moment." Ms. Knox. Not Isabella. Not CEO. Distance appears in language before it appears in action. She glances at her phone while waiting. Her inbox refuses to load. She refreshes once. Then again. Her internal messaging app errors out completely. Her calendar is empty, wiped clean as if someone reached forward in time and erased her future first. That's when she understands this is not technical. "What's going on?" she asks calmly. The guard gestures toward a small conference room near the lobby. No windows, neutral furniture, a room designed for conversations that should never echo. "The board asked that you wait here." The board. Isabella doesn't argue. She doesn't raise her voice. She walks into the room and sits, posture straight, hands folded neatly in front of her. Her breathing slows deliberately. Panic has never helped anyone. Minutes stretch. At 9:02 a.m., the door opens. Marcus Hale walks in. Marcus is not just an executive. He is history. He joined the company when it still smelled like solder and burnt coffee. He once told Isabella he believed in her more than the idea itself. He doesn't sit across from her. He sits beside her. "I didn't know how to tell you," Marcus says quietly. Isabella doesn't respond. Silence forces honesty out of people faster than anger ever could. "This isn't personal," Marcus adds, "because betrayal always introduces itself that way." The board enters next. One by one. Calm. Controlled. Carrying folders Isabella recognizes instantly. Her signatures stare back at her from the pages. That is the sharpest cut. Not that they tricked her. That she trusted them. The company's legal counsel begins speaking, voice smooth, practiced, almost kind. This meeting formalizes a leadership restructuring necessitated by governance review. "You can't do this," Isabella says. Not pleading. Not shouting. Just stating a fact she still believes should matter. "You retain significant equity," the lawyer replies carefully. But operational control has been reallocated under the agreements you approved. The documents slide toward her. Emergency clauses, voting thresholds, protective language designed to sound harmless while removing authority piece by piece. Isabella scans them once. She already knows what they say. She turns to Marcus. "Is this what you wanted?" she asks. Marcus hesitates. That hesitation answers everything. Security appears again, already prepared for this stage. Still polite, still calm. One of them gestures toward the door. Isabella stands slowly. Her expression doesn't change, but something hardens behind her eyes. As she walks down the hallway, she notices something small and devastating. The framed photo from the company's first product launch is gone. Not relocated. Removed. History edited before she can object. Outside, the city moves on without hesitation. Cars pass. People argue about unimportant things. Someone laughs loudly nearby. Power does not announce itself when it leaves. It just withdraws access. Her phone vibrates. A notification. Company announces strategic leadership transition. Her name appears once, halfway down the article, framed as legacy instead of presence. That night, Isabella sits alone in her apartment. Lights off, city glowing beyond the glass. She doesn't cry. She doesn't drink. She replays moments instead. The first board meeting. The first concession. The first time she let someone else explain her decisions for her. Power doesn't disappear. She realizes. It migrates. Over the next few days, silence replaces noise. Calls stop coming. Invitations evaporate. People who once needed her approval suddenly become unreachable. Marcus appears on business channels, speaking carefully about continuity and shared leadership. He avoids direct lies. He lets omission do the work. If you've ever believed success protects you, this is where that belief starts to crack. Stories like this hold attention because they show how quietly things end. A week later, an old engineer reaches out. Someone who left years ago but still understands the company's architecture better than most. "They're changing things they don't fully understand," he says quietly. "It's subtle, but it's wrong." Isabella listens. She doesn't interrupt. She doesn't correct. She collects information. More calls follow. Early investors, former partners, people who remember who carried the company when no one else wanted to touch it. Pattern forms. The board is divided. Marcus is overstretched. The company is profitable but fragile. Then comes the detail that changes everything. A junior analyst, nervous and apologetic, mentions something during an offhand conversation. A committee formed months earlier than reported. A hypothetical vote that wasn't hypothetical at all. A plan disguised as governance long before the public narrative begins. Isabella ends the call and sits very still. The betrayal didn't start with the vote. It started the moment the company became too valuable to trust its creator. That realization doesn't make her angry. It makes her precise. She does nothing publicly. No lawsuits. No statements. No emotional interviews. She lets the system believe it worked. Because the people who erase you are most dangerous when they think you're finished. The night ends with Isabella standing at her window, city lights reflecting in her eyes, no longer mourning what she lost, but calculating what remains. Reputation, silence, time. The board believes they deleted her. That belief is their first mistake. The silence works better than outrage ever could. Isabella Knox allows the world to believe the version the board releases. She does not deny the articles. She does not correct the interviews. She does not challenge the carefully curated narrative where she steps aside with grace and maturity. The board interprets this as surrender. Marcus interprets it as relief. Inside the company, systems reorganize themselves quickly, almost eagerly. Org charts redraw overnight. Titles update. Isabella's name disappears from documents the same way dust is wiped from a surface, efficiently, without ceremony. Meetings begin without her. Decisions are made faster now. Louder. More confident. Too confident. Marcus sits at the head of the table for the first time and tells himself the discomfort is temporary. He repeats the phrases the board feeds him. Stability, continuity, forward momentum. He believes them because believing keeps guilt quiet. The first problem arrives disguised as success. A cost optimization strategy saves millions on paper. Applause follows. Marcus nods along as charts glow behind him. Unaware that the savings come from cutting redundancies Isabella built deliberately. Buffers meant to absorb pressure when reality stopped behaving like projections. A supplier misses a deadline. No catastrophe, just a delay. Another delay follows. Then another. The company doesn't collapse. It stiffens. Like a body losing circulation. Isabella hears about it from someone who no longer works there. A former operations lead who still understands the company's architecture better than most of the executives now running it. They're trimming muscle, he says quietly. Not fat. Isabella says nothing. She doesn't argue. She doesn't instruct. She listens. If you're still here, this is the moment to pay attention. This is where revenge stories usually get loud and stupid. That's not what this is. This is patience turning dangerous. This is why people subscribe, to see what happens when restraint becomes strategy. Marcus begins to feel pressure from places he can't immediately identify. Investors start asking questions that sound polite but aren't. Why delivery timelines are slipping. Why experienced managers are resigning quietly. Why internal performance looks stable while external confidence feels brittle. Marcus answers carefully. He leans on prepared language. He trusts the board to cover the gaps. The board, meanwhile, is no longer unified. One member pushes for tighter control. Another urges caution. A third worries aloud about Isabella's silence, then immediately dismisses it, as if speaking her name might summon her. They reassure each other that the documents are airtight, that Isabella has no leverage, that the past is finished. What they don't say is what each of them feels privately. Systems remember their architects. Isabella begins making calls she never expected to make. Not to lawyers, not to journalists, to people who left early. Engineers who still understand how the company breathes. Finance partners who remember how often Isabella personally stepped in to save deals that never reached the board. She asks questions instead of issuing commands. What's slowing down? Where are decisions bottlenecked? What assumptions are being violated? The answers sharpen into a pattern. The board is optimizing for optics, not resilience. Marcus is performing leadership, not practicing it. The company is coasting on momentum built years earlier. Isabella realizes something that almost makes her smile. They didn't erase her. They froze the company at the moment they removed her. Marcus's confidence cracks publicly during a live interview. The question sounds harmless. Do you think the company lost something intangible when the founder stepped down? Marcus answers too fast. No, he says. The company is bigger than any one person. The words land stiff, defensive. The clip doesn't go viral. It doesn't need to. It circulates just enough. Inside the company, a senior manager resigns without explanation. Then another. Neither makes noise. Neither gives interviews. Both understand systems. Marcus notices the exits too late. He reaches out to Isabella for the first time since the removal. The call goes unanswered. That silence hurts more than anger ever could. Weeks pass. Then the audit notice arrives. It doesn't accuse. It doesn't threaten. It requests clarification, historical documentation, expanded access, routine compliance language stripped of emotion. The board reacts immediately. Lawyers are called. Meetings multiply. Someone suggests narrowing scope. Someone else warns that looks suspicious. Marcus is looped in late. That delay tells him everything. Isabella hears about the audit through a third party before Marcus does. That confirms what she already knows. She remains publicly silent. Privately, she prepares. She reviews the architecture she once designed when the company was small and vulnerable, when no one believed it would ever matter. Clauses she insisted on adding because she didn't trust power to behave honorably forever. Clauses about operational integrity, about systemic risk, about founder oversight under specific failure conditions. She doesn't smile. This isn't cleverness. It's inevitability. The audit expands. Not because Isabella pushes it, but because the answers the company provides raise more questions. Systems under stress expose truths no narrative can hide. Marcus starts sleeping poorly. He rereads emails searching for meaning that isn't there. He snaps at assistants, then apologizes too quickly. The board reassures him. They shouldn't have. If you're still listening, understand this point. Power rarely collapses in explosions. Phrase quietly. That's why stories like this keep people listening. They mirror reality too closely to ignore. The board schedules a private session. Marcus is not invited. He finds out afterward. That exclusion breaks the final illusion. He confronts them in the hallway, voice low, controlled. "You're cutting me out," he says. "No," the chair replies calmly. "We're protecting the company." Marcus laughs once, hollow. "You're protecting yourselves," he says. They don't deny it. The founder's name is spoken again behind closed doors. Not with respect, with fear. An investor calls Isabella directly. "I just want to understand something," the investor says. "Did you really give up control that easily?" Isabella pauses. "Did they tell you why they needed me gone?" she asks. Silence answers for him. That silence spreads. Conversations change tone. The board senses the shift and moves to contain it. They discuss settlement, optics, narrative management. They never discuss apology. Marcus calls Isabella again. This time she answers. "I didn't think it would end like this," Marcus says quietly. "I know," Isabella replies. "That's why it did." The call ends without drama. The audit timeline stretches. Delay becomes pressure. Pressure becomes fear. The board schedules another meeting. This time, Isabella is invited formally. Marcus is not. When Isabella steps into the building again, there is no announcement, no escort, just eyes following her through the halls, quick glances, restrained breath. She takes a seat in a neutral conference room and waits. The board enters. This time, no one smiles. They speak about unity, about stability, about moving forward. Isabella listens. Then she asks one question that rearranges the room. Who benefits from pretending this was clean? No one answers, because everyone knows the answer. And this is where the trap finally tightens. The room does not recover from the question. No one rushes to answer because answering would require ownership. And ownership, once claimed, becomes blame. Isabella sits back, hands folded, posture relaxed. She does not press. She doesn't need to. Silence does more damage than accusation ever could. One board member clears his throat. Another reaches for a pen, then sets it down without writing. A third stares at the table as if the grain might offer guidance. Marcus is not in the room. That absence is intentional. The meeting ends without conclusion. Not because they agree, but because no one knows how to move forward without conceding something irreversible. When the doors close, the board fractures instantly. One member calls legal to discuss containment. Another calls an investor to reassure them that the situation is manageable. A third does nothing at all, quietly calculating personal risk. Isabella leaves the building without ceremony. She doesn't look back. She already knows what's happening behind her. The company feels it within hours. Not panic, not chaos, hesitation. Emails become cautious. Approvals slow. Decisions that once took minutes now take meetings. People sense instability not because anything is wrong yet, but because authority feels misaligned. Marcus feels it in his body before his mind understands it. Conversations stop when he enters rooms. Assistants begin copying others on emails that used to come directly to him. Meetings end with phrases like, "Let's revisit this," instead of conclusions. Leadership without legitimacy collapses inward. He calls the board chair late that night. "I need clarity," Marcus says. "You're doing fine," the chair replies smoothly. "This is just noise." Marcus knows noise. This isn't noise. He starts reviewing documents himself. Old agreements, side letters, governance clauses he once ignored because Isabella never framed them as weapons. That's when he sees it. A section buried deep in operational governance. Language tied to systemic risk and operational misalignment. A trigger mechanism that bypasses board authority under specific conditions. Conditions the company is now quietly meeting. Isabella's fingerprints are all over it. Marcus's stomach tightens. She didn't just build the company. She anticipated this. He doesn't sleep that night. He replays conversations. The day she insisted on that clause. The way she said, "One day you'll thank me." The half-smile she wore when no one argued. He thought it was paranoia. It was preparation. Inside the company, fragments of the audit begin circulating. Not findings. Signals. Delayed vendor compliance. Operational rigidity. Leadership bottlenecks. Governance drift. Nothing criminal. Everything damning. The board schedules another emergency session. This time, Isabella is invited. Marcus is not. When he finds out, something breaks cleanly inside him. He confronts them in the hallway, voice tight but controlled. "You're cutting me out." "No," the chair says calmly. "We're protecting the company." Marcus laughs once, sharp and humorless. "You're protecting yourselves." No one disagrees. If you're still here, this is where the story changes shape. This is where it stops being about betrayal and becomes about consequence. People stay to the end because they want to see whether power ever pays its debts. Inside the meeting, Isabella listens as the board presents options. An advisory role, public acknowledgement, a controlled narrative. She lets them finish. Then she speaks. "You removed me because I was inconvenient," she says calmly. "Now you want me back because I'm necessary." That's not reconciliation. That's panic. No one argues. She slides a folder across the table. Not a threat. Not a demand. Documentation. A clear breakdown of the clause Marcus discovered. How it activates. What it exposes. What happens if external oversight escalates. The board reads. Faces tighten. "This could become ugly," one member mutters. "It already is," Isabella replies. The meeting ends differently than the last. Not with confusion, with fear. Marcus receives the call an hour later. The board chair's voice is calm, but strained. "We need to discuss your position." Marcus understands immediately. He meets them that evening. No ceremony, no praise, no reassurance. His role is under review. "You used me," Marcus says quietly. The chair doesn't flinch. "You volunteered." That truth lands harder than anger. Marcus leaves the building knowing something final has shifted. He was never meant to hold power. He was meant to hold space until Isabella returned. Inside the company, the atmosphere changes again. People begin reaching out to Isabella directly. Not openly, carefully, asking questions, seeking alignment, looking for permission to believe again. She answers selectively. She is not reclaiming loyalty. She is restoring order. The press senses tension. Articles stop praising transition and start questioning it. Analysts hedge their language. The stock wavers slightly. Nothing dramatic. Just enough. The board calls one final meeting. This time everyone attends. Isabella arrives last. They speak about resolution, stability, the future. She listens. Then she stands. "I don't want my old role," she says. That surprises them. "I want the structure corrected," she continues. "Authority must match responsibility, and no board should ever be able to erase leadership without accountability." The board resists briefly. Then the numbers arrive. Investor pressure, legal exposure, reputational risk. The cost of refusal outweighs the cost of surrender. They vote. Governance is restructured. Oversight redistributed. Isabella's authority restored, not symbolically, but structurally. Marcus is asked to step down. He accepts without argument. When they meet privately afterward, the air is heavy. "I thought we were building something together," Marcus says. "We were," Isabella replies. "You just chose speed over foundation." Marcus nods, understanding too late. He leaves quietly, the same way she once did. Weeks pass. The company stabilizes. Slowly, carefully. Decisions become deliberate again. Buffers return. People stop guessing. Isabella leads differently now. Less open. More exacting. No illusions. She does not celebrate her return. Because this is not the end. Something still remains unresolved. And the final consequence has not yet arrived. The final consequence does not arrive with noise. It arrives wearing relief. The governance vote passes quietly. Press releases frame it as maturity. Analysts describe it as correction. Investors relax. From the outside, the company appears healed, stronger for having survived a stumble. Inside, the air is thinner. Isabella Knox feels it immediately. Not suspicion, not fear, but distance. People comply faster than they contribute. Meetings end sooner. Questions sound rehearsed. Loyalty returns, but it's cautious now, measured in emails that CC too many people and decisions that ask for approvals no one needed before. Power has returned to her hands, but innocence has not. She does not try to restore it. She understands now that innocence is a liability systems exploit. She begins with structure, not speeches, not inspiration, structure. She rebuilds the scaffolding of authority the board once hollowed out. Tightening review paths, restoring buffers, closing gaps no one noticed when everything looked profitable. She audits decision flows the way surgeons audit operating rooms. What is necessary stays. What exists for appearances disappears. No announcements. No applause. Precision replaces warmth. If this still has you listening, it's because you recognize the shift. Stories like this don't promise justice. They show what survival actually costs. The board meets weekly now. Shorter meetings. Fewer opinions. The chair speaks less. The others watch Isabella carefully, as if the room itself has learned to listen. She does not threaten them. She explains consequences. She shows timelines, dependencies, risks that compound silently. She speaks in the language they respect, outcomes, not emotions. When someone pushes back, she doesn't argue. She asks a question and waits. Silence does the rest. 2 board members resign within a month. Personal reasons. Other commitments. Carefully worded exits. Another announces a planned departure later in the year. The chair remains, diminished, grateful for proximity. Power shifts again. This time, no one pretends it's temporary. The company begins to change in ways that don't make headlines. Decisions slow, then sharpen. Managers stop bypassing process. Engineers regain authority. Operations regain flexibility. The machine remembers how it was meant to move. Isabella walks the halls more often now. Not to be seen, to see. She watches who asks questions and who avoids them, who speaks plainly and who performs safety. She keeps notes, quiet ones. A mid-level manager makes a small decision to bypass a review. Justified, efficient, harmless, they think. Isabella calls them in. The conversation lasts 6 minutes. "You won't do that again," Isabella says calmly. The manager nods quickly, explains pressure, intent, urgency. Isabella listens. Then she says something that spreads through the company like a controlled burn. Intent doesn't survive systems. Only structure does. The phrase moves quietly from room to room, not as a threat, as a rule. If you're still here, it's because this feels uncomfortably familiar. People subscribe for that reason, to understand how power actually behaves when no one is watching. Months pass. Performance stabilizes, then improves. Trust rebuilds not as devotion but as alignment. People stop guessing. They know where authority sits and why. That clarity calms everything else. Isabella declines invitations to panels and interviews. She writes no thought pieces. She gives no speeches about leadership. She understands that explanation invites argument, and argument invites erosion. Instead, she amends the governance framework. The change is subtle, legal, boring to anyone skimming, unavoidable to anyone reading closely. It ensures that no future board can remove the architect of the system without triggering immediate external review. Not to protect a person, but to protect the role. To force accountability where silence once thrived. The board approves it unanimously. Not because they want to, because they know better now. Marcus Hale's name surfaces briefly when a journalist asks about the transition months later. The answer is rehearsed, neutral, forgettable. Marcus does not comment. He sends Isabella a single message late one evening. "I understand now." Isabella reads it. She does not reply. Not out of cruelty. Out of closure. The final test comes unexpectedly. A market shock ripples through the sector. Not catastrophic, but sharp enough to expose weak joints. Suppliers strain. Timelines wobble. Competitors panic publicly. Inside the company, alarms stay quiet. Buffers hold. Processes flex. Teams respond without waiting for permission. Isabella watches the dashboards update in real time. She says little. She lets the system work. The board gathers instinctively, anxious energy returning to the room. "What's our exposure?" someone asks. Isabella answers with numbers, then with options, then with a decision already implemented. The room stills. They realize then what they lost when they tried to erase her, and what they regained when they stopped pretending power could be separated from understanding. The shock passes. The company does not celebrate. Continues. That is the difference. One evening, Isabella stands alone in her office. Lights low. City alive below. She feels no triumph. Only clarity. She built the company once with belief. She rebuilt it with understanding. She knows now that trust must be designed, not assumed. That loyalty without structure is theater. That systems don't hate you when they erase you. They simply don't remember you unless you force them to. The board never tries again. Not because they fear her, because they finally understand the cost. If you stayed to the end, it's because this story didn't offer comfort. It offered recognition. Power doesn't end stories cleanly. It leaves marks. That's why people keep listening. Because the next one might feel even closer to home.